Her eyes widened. "What did you just say?" The man nodded his head. "You need to go to the training hall. He is there. The doctors can't start your mother's treatment until Alpha permits them to do so." "Are you all out of your mind? She will die." The doctor lowered his head and replied, "It's better you get his permission as soon as possible. We are afraid we can't save your mother." She took a step back. "You are a doctor. How can you do this to your patient?" "We can't overtake our Alpha's order." After saying that, the doctor went inside the operation theater. She rushed to the door and began banging on it. "You can't do this to my mother," she screamed in anger. "You are wasting your time. You should go to Alpha before something happens to your mother," the men behind her said. She rushed to the entrance of the hospital. On the way, she learned from the receptionist that Victor was discharged last night. She tried to call Victor, but Victor did not receive her call. She had no choice but to leave the Pack Hospital and take a cab to go to the Pack House area where the training hall was located. She cried the whole way as she was getting mad at Brian. Her wolf began to growl inside her, telling her to control herself. But her face turned fiercer as she thought about how cruel Brian was. How could he play with her mother's life like that? She knew what Brian wanted. He would tell her to cancel the wedding with Victor. She knew him really well. He was a heartless man. The hatred that filled her heart burned inside her, causing her to lose her sanity entirely. She wanted nothing but to kill that man. When the cab entered the area of the Pack House, she paid the driver and rushed to the training hall. She noticed the guards outside the hall gestured for her to enter there as if they were aware of her arrival. When she entered the hall, she saw no one there until her eyes fell on the man who was hurling wooden stakes at the target. He was shirtless and wearing brown training pants at the bottom. His body was covered in sweat, giving the impression that he had worked out a lot today. Sophia's eyes turned ocean blue as he looked at his back, filled with anger. Her wolf was warning her inside not to do anything in anger. But she shut her eyes, and when they opened, they were dark black. She caged her wolf inside and made her way to the ruthless man. "I knew you would come. There is no way you can let your mother die. But guess what? You can only save her if you listen to me." Brian spoke out without turning around to her. He grabbed another stake and looked at the target, which was far enough away to get in touch. But when he hurled the stake, it pierced the black dot of the target perfectly, as if it were just a few feet away from his hand. Sophia's eyes moved to the wooden stake plate that was perched on a wooden stand. She clenched her jaw as she lost herself completely, dashing over to grab one stake. "All you need to do is sign a few papers. I will tell them to start the SOAR." While speaking, Brian turned around to face Sophia as he felt her presence behind him. He was interrupted when he saw her fierce face, but then he realized what she had done. Out of rage, Sophia grabbed a wooden stake, and when he turned around, she pierced the stake in his chest without thinking twice. Brian felt a sharp pain in his chest. He could feel the sharpness of the stake. It was close, but it did not reach his heart. The pain was unbearable because it was a very sharp wooden stake. He stared at Sophia as he saw the hatred in her eyes. He could not just believe she could do that to him. "You tried to play with my mom's life. How could you?" He ignored her words as if he did not believe the hatred in her eyes. He still believed she was just angry and naive. But his heart clenched inside when he slowly moved his eyes from her face to her hand. His brows lifted as if he were in disbelief. He saw that the woman's hand was not shaking at all as she pierced the stake in his chest. "What are you looking at? Didn't you say I would become your enemy the day I pierced your heart without shaking my hand? Should I twist the stake to show my strength?" Sophia asked while giving him a stern look. Brian stared at her hand as if he were lost. He was in pain, but the pain inside his heart was unendurable. On the other hand, Sophia pulled the stake out of his chest and noticed how blood was gushing out of it. "I swear I would have killed you today. But it's just a warning," she muttered while taking a step backward. Brian's head was down, so she could not see his expression. "Tell the doctors to start my mother's treatment. If she won't make it, next time I will kill you with my own hands." Saying that, she loosened her grip on the wounded stake. The bloody stake fell to the ground and made a loud sound in the silent hall. She turned around and left the training hall. Brian stared at the floor as if he were not in his mind anymore. After a few seconds, he came back to his senses and let out an ear-piercing growl. His eyes turned red, and his expression changed from calm to rage. Hearing his growls, the guards outside rushed inside. They noticed Brian's wound and screamed in shock. "Alpha!" But no one stepped out of the hall to catch Sophia. Brian glared at them and roared, "Why didn't you go to catch the woman?" The guards were surprised as one of them said, "Alpha, you told us a year ago not to hurt her, even if she hurts you." Brian clenched his jaw in fury. "Go and bring her here right now." His yell shook every guard, and they dashed out of the hall to catch Sophia. Brian held his chest and felt blood flowing out of it. "It's an attempt to murder the head alpha," a guard said to others. "She deserves to die. The only punishment is killing her. How dare that girl hurt our alpha? The man who no one can touch is injured by a young woman. How on earth is that even feasible?" The guards whispered when Brian told the rest of them to leave the hall. They called the officials except Abraham, who was not in the pack, and informed them about it. Within a few minutes, 3 of the officials dashed into the training hall. They were shocked to see Brian with the wound, but Brian was not trying to stop the blood. Instead, he was smoking as if he were trying to calm himself. Beta Robert rushed to him and grabbed his arm. "You need to treat your wound. Did it reach your heart? I believe it's not since you are standing tall." Brian yanked his hand away from his grip and turned to face him. "Bring that woman back to me, Robert. She thought a wooden stake could kill Alpha Brian." Robert's eyes widened as he took a step back. Behind him, the other 2 officials were also shocked. It was not because of Brian's words, but because of his look. Robert's lips trembled as he said, "Hey, Alpha." Last night, when Brian lost his temper, Robert noticed a resemblance to the old Brian. But when Brian returned to his house, he tried to push himself to calm down. It was because he loved Sophia and did not want to hurt her, even if he was enraged at her. There was tranquility inside his eyes, which was a hope that he would be able to keep his cool and maintain the look he had been wearing for 5 years. However, after observing Brian's current state, all hope vanished from Robert's heart. Because in front of him, it was not the Brian who always liked to be calm. It was the old Brian, the one everyone feared. He did not care about anyone, not even Sophia. He was a free man who could do whatever he wanted without considering the consequences. It looked as though he experienced a deep pain in his heart, which made him get back to his old self. Robert took another step back as he got enraged at Sophia for changing his best friend. He warned the woman not to do anything to lose Brian's mind. But she did not listen to him. She went so far as to try to hurt Brian to the core, from which he could not return. "Alpha, you need to treat your wound," Delta Edger said, bowing his head. Brian turned his head and looked at papers that were lying on another stand. "Theta Noble." "Yes, Alpha," Noble said, lowering his head. Brian walked toward the papers and grabbed them. The clauses in the agreement were simple. "I, Sophia Berge, will not marry Alpha Victor and will leave the Nightshade pack safely with my mother because I don't want to be with my mate, Alpha Brian, either. I am now free and not responsible for any future conflict between the 2 alphas." Everything was in Sophia's favor, but she did not even look at the papers before hurting him and leaving the hall. Brian clutched the papers in his hand and said, "Fuck this agreement. Make a new one. She hates me, right? I will show her what the real hatred is." Sophia was trying to call Victor. She prayed that he would receive the call and help her mother because she knew Brian would never help her. Like before, he did not receive the call. She got so annoyed that she almost threw her phone on the ground. She felt her heart shaking inside. She shut her eyes when she realized what she had done. "I don't care. It's about my mother's life. How can I let him go? He deserves to die. If he doesn't allow the doctors to start my mother's treatment, I will kill him," she said to herself as tears rolled down her eyes. She realized that her family's life was in jeopardy due to royal politics. She wondered if her mother would be fine if she stayed away from Brian. She was furious at Victor for not receiving her calls when she was in danger. Her brother was also out of contact. Why was it all coming to her? As she walked forward, her steps came to a halt, and her eyes widened when something hit her mind. Didn't Brian say that in 2 days she would go back to him? Did he plan everything? Did he do something to her mother? Did he plan it? And was it the reason why he sent her brother out of the pack? Her body began to shake as she realized that it was her fault that her mother was in this condition. Suddenly, she felt someone grab her arms. She turned and saw the guards. They grabbed her arms and started to pull her back to the pack house area. "What are you doing?" she yelled at them. "You dared to harm our alpha. You have to die." She frowned at them and tried to break free. "Leave me. It's your alpha's fault. He hurt my mom. She is dying right now because of him." The guards did not listen to her, but instead of taking her to the training hall, they dragged her in the other direction. She asked them where they were taking her, but they did not reply to her. She tried to free herself, but it was of no use. They came to a halt in front of a small house. It was one of the houses in the pack house area. There were many buildings in the entire area. In addition to the pack house for Alpha and his family, there was also a large training hall, a big quarter for pack fighters, several halls for gatherings and pack meetings, and a few guest houses for guests from outside the pack. The guards were taking her to the guest house. She stopped struggling when the guards outside the house opened the door. As soon as the long gate opened, her eyes fell on the man sitting on the large couch. The guards held her tightly as she entered the house. They pushed her harshly toward the man sitting on the couch. It caused her to fall to her knees in front of him. The man's gaze remained fixed on her from the moment she walked into the house. His piercing eyes pried into her. Her eyes shifted to his chest. He was wearing a black shirt, and there was no way she could see his wound. Unknowingly, for the first time, she was startled by his look. The way he was looking at her was not how he usually looked when he got mad at her. The look was like he was the predator and she was his prey. Behind him were his officials and a few guards. With disgust on her face, she questioned, "Alpha, Brian, why did they bring me here?" Brian said nothing, his eyes glued to her, as if he were scheming the hatred in her eyes. When he lifted his hand, Theta Noble gave him a folder. Brian tossed it to her on the ground and uttered, "Sign it." When he spoke, his tone was not icy, but rather so rife with rage that it caused Sophia to shake on the inside. But she took a deep breath and shoved the fear from her heart. She glared at him and asked, "Did you tell the doctors to start my mom's treatment?" Beta Robert growled at her as he was about to rush to her. "How dare you hurt him and then expect him to help your mother?" But Brian signaled him with his hand to stop approaching her. Robert took a step back and lowered his head, as if he did not obey him. Brian would kill him. Sophia was perplexed by Robert's behavior. She always noticed him acting differently around Brian because he was his best friend. Robert had never before been so submissive as far as she could remember, but the words that Robert said really infuriated her. So she said, "Every single thing was planned by your alpha. He made my mom sick. She was fine in the morning. How did she get sick so suddenly? How did he find out that my mother was sick? How did he order his men to stop the treatment? He is not a man, but a beast." Brian raised a brow after hearing her. "You are so right. I am a beast. Everyone is terrified of this beast. They were so relieved when I kept it inside me for years, but you released it today, and now it's free." Sophia clenched her jaw as she looked away from the look he was giving her. She grabbed the folder and opened it. She knew that if she continued to argue, this man would kill her mother. Her hands were caged now. To save her mother, she would have to do something she did not want to do. She would have to call off the wedding. She was now completely disgusted by this man. But as soon as her eyes landed on the bold letters on the paper, they grew larger in shock. Marriage contract? She lowered her eyes and began reading the papers. She was stunned to discover that it was a marriage contract between her and Brian Morrison. It stated that she was going to be his wife and Luna, but there was no way she could break the marriage until he wanted it. She raised her gaze from the papers and looked at him. "I will never marry a man like you," she said in anger. Brian smirked at her. "Why? Didn't you want a name in the position of my Luna? Isn't it what you wanted all this time and went to another man to humiliate me around? I will show you now what it costs to be Alpha Brian's Luna." Sophia shook her head as tears streamed out of her eyes. "I regret loving you, Brian Morrison. You are the worst person I have ever seen. I hate you." Brian rolled his eyes and grabbed his phone from the table in front of him. He lifted his legs and rested them on the table before dialing a number. He put the phone on speaker and inquired, "Is her mother still alive?" "Yes, Alpha." Brian looked at Sophia and muttered, "Then kill her." "No!" Sophia screamed in fear. Brian was about to hang up the phone, but she stood up and rushed to him. "Don't kill my mom. She is innocent. You can kill me, but don't hurt her." Brian pushed her hands away from his body and stood tall. He looked down at her and grabbed her jaw tightly. "Congratulations! You have now qualified to be my enemy. It seems like you will have to spend the rest of your life with your enemy." He let go of her jaw, and she took a step back. She shook her head, not wanting to sign the papers. But the memory of her mother's condition flashed through her mind. She pushed Brian into his chest in anger. "I hate you. I wish I had killed you that time." When she touched Brian, every guard around them pointed their guns at her. But Brian did not move a little by her push. He scoffed at her and turned his head to his officials. "What's with this sulky mood? Arrange a bachelor party, guys. Your Alpha is getting married." He turned his head back to Sophia and asked, "Or should I cancel the party?" "Let's hurry. My men are waiting outside the operation theater, you know." Sophia realized that Brain's man was still on the phone. She bit her tongue in anger and grabbed the papers. Theta Noble walked to her and offered her a pen. She grabbed it and glanced at Brian. A year ago, she was eager to marry this man, but tonight, she found herself regretting everything. She gripped the pen firmly and signed the marriage contract. When Theta Noble took the folder from her, she overheard Brian telling his man, who was on the call, "Don't kill her. Her daughter is clever enough to save her life." Sophia felt lost. She was broken inside. She was defeated in front of this man. He was a devil who possessed so much power that he could do anything he wanted. Theta Noble handed the folder to Brian. He signed the papers with a fury on his face. His officials did not look pleased at all. They were aware that Brian's decision could lead to chaos. He not only violated the agreement to marry Mila, but he also rejected the consequences of his crime from years ago. Robert stared at Brian. It was forbidden for Brian to marry someone other than Mila, but he was not the same Brian anymore, who followed any rules. He had returned to the old Brian, who did not give a damn about any contract and did whatever he wanted. He let go of all the thoughts of the consequences that he and his pack would have to face because of his one decision. Robert turned his head toward Sophia and felt that it was all her fault. Brian was so in love with her, but she made fun of his heart. However, what she had done today was something no one had ever thought of. It made Brian realize that she was not the woman he loved. She had changed, so he changed himself as well. Brian handed the folder to Theta Noble after signing and gave his guards a cold look. "Bow down to her. She is now the Luna of your pack." When everyone heard that, they were stunned. Because they assumed Brian would treat her poorly and punish her in the future. Almost immediately, all the guards bowed their heads at Sophia, obligated to obey their Alpha. "All hail to the new Luna of our pack." Sophia did not react as she stared at Brian with empty eyes. Brian walked up to Sophia and leaned down to whisper in her ears, "I will give you everything you desire, but you will never get the one thing in your life that I wanted to give you, even if you were not my Luna, and that's my love." Sophia stepped backward while shaking her head. "I will never forgive you for this. You made me cancel my wedding and forced me to marry you." Brian nodded, tucking one hand into his pocket, and replied, "You are right. I did it. Now what? Will you go and cry to your ex-fiancé about it?" He took a step toward her and raised his hand. When he placed his hand on her head, she immediately pushed it away. He laughed when she did that. "Go and tell your ex-fiancé that Alpha Brian is back. If he dares to come after me for canceling his wedding, then come with his full force. My border is always wide open for him. I am not a coward like him, who will banish him from my pack in fear." Sophia looked away from him and turned around to leave the house. She ran outside, feeling hatred for Brian. It was increasing day by day. What Brian did today was something she had never expected. Just to defeat Victor, he tried to kill her mother and forced her to marry him. Sophia saw a car stop in front of her as she exited the residential area. The driver got out of the car and opened the back door for her. "Luna, please get into the car. Alpha ordered me to drop you off at the PAC hospital." A girl was lying on the bed who looked to be 16 or 17 years old. Her hands were handcuffed to the headboard, and her entire body was covered in bite marks. Blood was rolling down from a few marks while the others turned purple. The man who was pressing his body against hers was groaning in pleasure while pounding her. He sank his teeth into her left breast while gripping the other with his other hand. "Please let me go," the girl cried with a broken voice. But she had no strength to move her body or push him. The man was like a beast, sucking out every muscle in her body. The man smirked at her, blood staining the corner of his mouth. "How can I let you go, darling? I booked you for the whole night." Only tears could roll down her eyes. She could not even shake her head in denial. Suddenly, someone began to bang on the door. "Alpha!" The man groaned in annoyance as he turned his head toward the door. "What?" The man roared as if he would kill the other man out of the door. "Alpha, it's urgent. Please come out." Hearing that, the man let out a sigh of defeat and moved himself away from the young girl. As he got out of bed, his eyes scanned the girl's naked body. It was full of marks and blood. Her lower body was swollen, and he could see how she was lying, almost lifeless. He put on a pair of pants and went to grab his phone from the nightstand. 11 missed calls, he muttered. He heard every ring, but he did not receive any of them intentionally. He locked the phone and made his way to the door. When he opened the door, he saw his beta standing outside. "If you don't have a better reason to interrupt me in the middle of fucking, I swear I will rip off your head today," he warned the man. His beta glanced behind him at the young girl lying naked on the bed. "Is she alive?" Casting a sidelong glance, the man walked out of the room. "Yeah, you really ruined my mood. I'm done with her. You all can use her if you want." "She no longer looks appealing," the beta replied. "Then throw her somewhere." "What if Alpha Brian got to know that we bought an underage girl?" The man glared at him, which caused him to gulp and shut his mouth. When the man started to walk forward, his beta followed him behind. "Alpha, Sophia's mother." The man's steps halted as he turned around and asked, "Her mother is dead? Now I have to go to give her a shoulder to cry on." The beta lowered his head. "We don't know anything about her current state." He raised a brow and asked, "Where is the doctor? Call him." Alpha Brian changed the doctor at the last moment. He sent his private physician to treat Sophia's mother. "What did you say?" He grabbed his beta's collar in anger. At that time, his phone rang. When he saw the number, he received the call in a fit of rage. "Alpha Victor, how dare you betray me?" he growled, holding the phone. "Trust me, I tried my best, but Alpha Brian sent his own doctor and forbade all doctors from approaching Hannah Berge. He did not even let the hospital ask her daughter to pay the fee for the heart surgery, as he said he himself would pay for it. That woman's condition was very serious. I could have easily finished the work, but I have no idea what happened." Victor's eyes flashed red as he cut the call and gripped the phone tightly. How dare that man play like that? His beta's head was still lowered. Victor glared at his beta and asked, "You didn't do your job properly, did you?" "Alpha, the dosage you gave Sophia's mother last night was medically proven by her own doctor. He had clearly informed me that the dosage could weaken her heartbeats and potentially cause a major heart attack without raising any suspicions. He was certain she would not be able to survive. We had him in the hospital to kill that woman, even if Sophia had taken her there. But then Alpha Brian changed the doctor and—" Victor let go of his collar and growled, "Then do something and kill that woman." "We can't. Alpha Brian's men are protecting her from the outside. They are shielding the operating room to keep the woman safe." Victor clenched his jaw in rage. "I hate that man. I just hate him. How come he is always one step ahead of me? How?" His rage grew inside his head. His handsome face no longer looked handsome, as he appeared infuriated. He unlocked his phone hurriedly and looked at the missed calls again. He walked into the living room and sat on the couches. He dialed Sophia's number. As soon as the call connected, he lowered his tone, calmed his face, and asked, "Where are you? I have been calling you so many times, but you didn't receive my calls, and now you are asking where am I?" Sophia's angry voice came out of the phone. He glanced at his beta, who was looking fearful. He looked away from him and responded to Sophia. "I am sorry, darling. I was sleeping. I returned to the house that I purchased in this pack to stay for a while. My health is not good." As if she believed he was sick and his gentle tone had lessened her anger, she mumbled, "My mom. Is she okay?" he asked carefully. "She is undergoing heart surgery, and I am sitting hopelessly outside the room, waiting to know whether she can survive." He felt relieved by her crying tone. He rubbed his forehead and muttered, "It's okay, I am on my way to you. Even if something happens to her, I am still with you." "What are you saying, Victor? Don't say that. My mom will be fine. I believe that." He ignored her reply and asked, "She was perfectly fine. What suddenly happened to her?" She paused as if she had almost forgotten something while worrying about her mother. He cleared his throat and spoke again. "I don't think it's normal. Did somebody do anything to her?" "It's Brian Morrison. He dared to hurt my mom." "You are right. He tried to kill your mom, but I am not like him. I will protect you and your mom," he replied with a sly grin on his lips as his face relaxed. "Victor, he is such a cruel man. He did it to stop our wedding. Not only that, but he—" She paused again, which caused Victor to frown. "But he what?" She then mumbled in a low tone, "He forced me to sign a marriage contract." "Marriage contract? With whom?" he asked in shock. "With him." As if the ground slipped under Victor's feet, he stood up from the couch and said in disbelief, "What?" Sophia was talking with Victor when she saw the door of the operation theater open. She hung up the phone and dashed over to the doctor, who had emerged from the room. "Is she okay?" she asked with a fear in her heart. If something happened to her mother, she would die. She would never take it. "Congratulations. The surgery was successful. Your mother is out of danger now. It's a rare case, but it looks like a big hand is always behind you. You saved your mother's life at the right time." Sophia took a step backward, feeling the weight of her body ease, her hand pressed against the wall beside her to take support from it for not falling down. Tears streamed out of her eyes as she closed them. She felt relaxed. All the worry for her mother moved slowly away from her heart. The doctor stared at her for a while and gave her time to relax. "I have never seen a woman as lucky as you. You have the blessings of the moon goddess." Hearing the doctor, Sophia opened her eyes and looked at him. The doctor was young and did not look very experienced. She had never seen him in the hospital before either. However, he saved her mother, which was the main fact, and she was thankful to him. "Doctor, all thanks to you. You saved her. I can't say much. I can only say that your mom is okay. Don't worry, we saved her entirely." "Can I meet her now?" she inquired, gazing at the door. "She will be shifted to a private cabin. You can see her after that, but she is under observation. We can hope that she will wake up soon. It may take her 3 days to wake up." "Okay," she replied, nodding her head. When the doctor was about to walk past, she spoke up. "What about the fees?" Before the doctor could reply, one of the guards replied to her question. "Alpha paid for it in advance." Sophia frowned as to why Brian paid for her mother. She assumed that because she signed the contract, Brian was providing her with financial assistance. However, she did not need it. She believed he had already destroyed her life. After an hour, when the nurses shifted her mother into a private cabin, Sophia realized that the cabins on the floor were only used for the Alpha's family. She glanced at a guard and asked, "Why is my mom here?" The guard bowed his head and replied, "Because she is our Luna's mother." Sophia's brows lifted in shock. The same guard who had previously warned her to go to Brian was now bowing to her and speaking politely with her. It appeared as though they had become aware of the contract details. She went to see her mother in the cabin. She saw that her mother's eyes were closed. She sat beside her and told her how helpless she was. "Mom, everything is over. I married a ruthless man." She held her hand and cried. There were some sounds coming from outside the cabin at that moment. She placed her mother's hand on the bed and dashed out of the cabin. She was stunned when she saw the guards stopping Victor from coming inside the cabin. "What are you all doing?" she asked the guards, closing the door of the cabin. "Luna, he wants to go to the cabin," the guard replied. Victor frowned and clenched his jaw. "Luna? She is our Luna. We are here to protect her mother. We are not allowed to let anyone enter that cabin." Sophia could see anger in Victor's face. She walked to the guards and said, "Let him enter. He is here to visit my mom. He is not my enemy." The guard shook his head and replied, "Alpha ordered us not to allow anyone to enter, not even any head alpha of the other pack." Victor tightened his fists and was about to attack the guard, but Sophia grabbed his hand and pulled him back. "Calm down, Victor. What were you going to do?" He turned to her and asked, "Did you see his audacity to talk to me? He is a mere guard. How could he have spoken to me in such a manner? He needs to die." Sophia felt annoyed because they were creating chaos outside her mother's cabin. Grabbing Victor's hand, she pulled him away from her mother's cabin. "Please don't make a scene here. My mom is still under observation." Victor withdrew his hands from her grasp and asked, "I am making a scene? Tell me about yours. Why did you sign that fucking contract?" His harsh tone surprised Sophia, but she thought his anger was valid. "I had no choice, Victor. My mom was at his gunpoint. He threatened to use his men to kill my mother if I did not sign the contract." His eyes grew red as he grasped her arms. She gasped when she felt his firm grip. "Just because of your mother, you married that man? It's not a wonderful excuse, Sophia." She felt pain in her arms, but his words caused her brows to furrow. "My mom is everything to me. I could have given my life in exchange for my mother's life." He drew her closer as rage shone in his eyes. "So I was not supposed to be a saint. I should have done what he did and forced you to marry me while putting your mother's life in danger." Sophia parted her lips, but nothing came out of her mouth. She did not know what to say. "You are not like that. That was why I agreed to marry you, even though my family was against it. Now you are saying this?" A few guards rushed in their direction, which caught them off guard. Sophia thought it was because they wanted to attack Victor. Nevertheless, the guards moved past them and paused in front of someone. Sophia turned her head and realized that another man was present. "Alpha, you are here!" the guards exclaimed, bowing to Brian. Brian's gaze was focused on Victor's hands, which were holding Sophia's hand. When he shifted his gaze and met Sophia's eye, she looked away from him in anger. Victor did not turn to Brian as if he were adamant not to face that man. His face revealed a look of defeat. His grip tightened on Sophia's grip as he said, "I believed you were a woman capable of defeating him, but you turned out like any other woman, a very weak creature." Sophia was startled by his words. His harsh words struck a chord in her heart. She heard Beta Robert's voice from a short distance away. "Alpha." Brian interrupted him and said it loudly. "Don't disturb me, Robert. Can't you see how much I'm enjoying the two lovers' conversation? The woman who wanted to see my downfall is now seeing the true colors of her lover, who is baffled by smelling his own downfall." Sophia shut her eyes in rage. Brian was getting on her nerves. She did not know how she would live with him for the rest of her life. He was nothing but a devil. The way he had changed was bothering her. He never passed up an opportunity to taunt her. She pushed Victor and said, "I am not weak, and even if I am, I don't need to give any justification for it. I did not have any other options at the time. Now I am not sure what the consequences of canceling the wedding will be, but I am willing to take the punishment." Victor glared at her without saying anything. Brian let out a chuckle as he began to step toward them. When he came to a halt, he looked at Sophia. "So sad. I ended your love story before it bloomed." Victor turned his head and growled at Brian. All of the guards around them aimed guns at Victor, indicating that if he dared harm their alpha, they would attack him. Brian looked at them and signaled for them to put down their weapons. "Relax, boys. He can only growl. He doesn't have the guts to attack." Victor gave him a scowl. "You dared to force her to marry you. You can only force people like that." "Well, what can I do? I don't like to waste my time manipulating people like you. If I want something, I have it, whether it is snatching it from others," Brian replied, winking at him. Victor turned to Sophia. "Did you see? This is the real Brian Morrison I was talking about. He is not a man you can trust. Sophia stared at Brian as her eyes were on him all the time. Brian patted Victor's shoulder and said, I am giving you some time to say goodbyes to each other. I will not disturb you both. I am here to see my mother-in-law, by the way. Sophia grabbed Brian's wrist to stop him. When Brian glanced at her hand, she let go of his wrist immediately and said, Don't call my mom that. You are the one who made her sick. Brian arched his brow. Really? His eyes shifted to Victor and he asked, Am I the one? Victor grabbed Brian's collar and uttered, You crossed every limit. You were so scared about our wedding that you planned such a cheap game. Brian raised his hands as if he had surrendered himself and said, Oh, I am so scared. He then let out a laugh. All of the guards laughed when they heard their alpha. Meanwhile, Robert remained silent and watched everything. He did not have anything to say. Brian was no longer in control. There was no one who could stop him, not even Alpha Victor or his family. Brian stopped laughing as his delighted expression hardened. He glared at Victor. Years ago, I let you go. I didn't even go after your pack. You yourself came after me. Now if I strike you back, don't cry around and tell your people that Alpha Brian is a merciless man. Victor's grip loosened as he released Brian's collar. He gave him a nod and muttered, You ruined my wedding. I will wait to see how you handle the fallout. I will soon see you in your pack house. After saying that, Victor gave Sophia one last look before walking away. On the other hand, Sophia was silent. Her face was pale. She looked tired. Everything that had happened to her made her feel exhausted. The air seemed to calm her down a little, as she could feel the scent of the man in front of her. But she did not want to like it. Her wolf was the one who desired her mate, not herself. Her wolf was pleased that her mate wanted her to be his Luna, but only she knew how she felt on the inside. Her gaze dawned on Brian, who started walking toward her mother's cabin. She rushed behind, trying to stop him, but Robert grabbed her hand and told her, Stop acting like he is going to hurt your mother. She gave him a puzzled expression. Then why did he come here? He came here to see her. For what? To see if she is still alive. Robert frowned at her, giving him an annoyed look. You have messed up a big time, Luna. She blinked her eyes when she heard Robert calling her Luna. She was still in shock that she was now this pack's Luna. She turned her head and saw Brian going inside her mother's cabin. She followed him and entered the cabin. She noticed him staring at her mother from a distance. She fixed her gaze on Brian. He looked mad, as if he were angry at her mother. Why are you looking at her like that? She is sick. Keep your evil eyes away from her, she mumbled in anger. He did not reply to her, which irritated her. She could not just feel good in his presence. After a while, she heard him speaking. Come to my house in the morning. Why? She asked while looking at him. He looked at her and raised an eyebrow. You are a married woman, Sophia Berge. He paused as if he realized that he had made a mistake. He came towards her and then continued, Sophia Morrison. Her heart started to beat faster when she heard him calling her that. She looked away from him when she saw he was giving an unfamiliar look. I won't come. I will stay here with my mom. Your mom is with my guards. They are here at my command. Don't make me change my command. She shifted her gaze at him and gave him a disgusted look. She pointed her finger at him and said, You can't always blackmail me like this. He grabbed her finger and pulled her closer. He lowered his head to her level and looked into her eyes. The hatred in your eyes pleases me. I am really enjoying it. Why don't you want to come? You are so scared to meet me in daylight. He smirked and tilted his head, whispering into her ear with his deep voice. Then what are you going to do when you have to be with me at night? The next morning, Sophia was talking to the doctor about her mother's health when one of the guards entered the cabin and told her that a driver was outside the hospital waiting for her to pick her up. Sophia wanted to deny it, but she had no choice. She tried to argue with Brian last night about not going to move into his house, but he made her realize that she was helpless. She had no other option except to listen to him now. She had finally become his pawn, allowing him to move her whenever he wanted. Sophia glanced at her mother. There were 2 nurses assigned by the doctor. They will take care of her mother from now on. Sophia left the hospital and noticed a car waiting for her. She got in the car, and the driver headed in the direction of Brian's private villa. When the car arrived at the villa, Sophia got out of the car with a gloomy face. She did not want to come here, and she could not even get an hour of sleep. So she looked exhausted. She entered the house that Brian referred to as his home. As soon as she stepped inside, she noticed Ivana Stones lowering her head and listening to Brian, who was sitting on the couch like a king. His gaze landed on Sophia. "Look who's here," he said. Ivana raised her head and turned to look at the door. As soon as she caught sight of Sophia, Ivana said, "Miss Luna," Brian muttered, interrupting Ivana. Ivana's eyes widened as she looked shocked, because when Brian told her about their Luna, she assumed he was talking about Mila. Sophia rolled her eyes after hearing Brian and walked forward until she stopped beside the couch. Brian looked at Ivana and said, "Don't be surprised. I know I had a bad choice." Sophia clenched her jaw as she stared at him. Ivana was perplexed, as she still could not believe Sophia had become the Luna. "Alpha? How?" Brian glared at her. "Do I have to answer you?" Ivana immediately shook her head and bowed to him. "I am so sorry, Alpha. Forgive me. Now call the maids and tell them to prepare her." Sophia frowned when she heard him. "Prepare me? For what?" With a fixed gaze at her, Brian replied, "I didn't know you were suffering from memory loss. You are now the Luna of this pack. Do you want to visit your in-laws with this appearance?" Her eyebrows rose as she heard him refer to his family as her in-laws. Ivana hurriedly turned to call the maids. "One more thing." Ivana paused in her steps and turned to face Brian. "Yes, Alpha? Don't try to inform my mom like a secret spy. You are my maid, not hers." Ivana nodded her head and left to call the maids. In a few seconds, a few maids entered the living room and gestured to Sophia to come with them upstairs. Sophia turned away from Brian and walked upstairs with the maids. When she entered the familiar bedroom, she recalled all the past memories there. She let out a sigh and turned to the maids. They wanted to assist her in the shower, but she rejected them. "I am not a queen that you all have to do this. I am capable of showering myself." "You are Alpha Brian's Luna. Of course you are the queen now. However, you have a valid point. You don't deserve to be his queen," one of the maids said. The other maids agreed in silence. Sophia could see the envy in her eyes. She glared at them, recalling an incident in which a maid attempted to seduce Brian, and he fired her because she disliked her. Sophia shoved the thought away and decided to ignore that fact. She took a shower and came out in a bathrobe. She was astounded when she noticed a slew of dresses in her bedroom. All of the dresses were long gowns with expensive labels, indicating that they were only for the Luna of the pack. She dressed in a light-colored gown. The maids assisted her in applying makeup and styling her hair, which looked great on her. She put on high heels and examined herself in the mirror. She did not resemble Sophia Berge, who was an ordinary girl, but rather a noblewoman from a royal family. She believed that attire could change people's appearances, but not their personalities. She left the room and went downstairs. Brian was talking on the phone when she approached him. Brian took a pause while talking as his eyes moved from her head to toe. She looked away from him and fixed her gaze on the floor. "I'm on the way," he said, cutting off the call. He stood up and moved toward the door, signaling to her that she should follow him. She followed him without saying a word. When they got into his car, the ride was quiet. Sophia felt weird being so close to him. It had been a long time since they had stayed close to each other. She turned her head to look at Brian. He was looking outside the window. Her gaze moved to his chest. She could see the outline of a bandage on his chest underneath his shirt. She remembered how she stabbed his chest. She still despised him. That one contract did not change anything between them. The car came to a stop in front of the pack house. She could see everything was silent around the house. She assumed that no one was aware of the marriage yet. The driver got out of the car and opened the door beside her. She was about to step outside when she heard Brian's voice. "Don't try to act over smart there. Try to stay away from the Laurent family and pretend to be happy with this marriage." She turned to him and asked, "Why would I pretend to be happy when you forced me?" Brian grabbed her jaw and stopped her from speaking any further. I don't want to spoil my mood with your nonsense. Let me handle my things by myself. If you dare humiliate me in front of anyone again, you will see the worst of me." Sophia clutched his wrist tightly and pushed it away from her jaw. "You are not going to tell me what I will do. You have already blackmailed me enough. You forced me to marry you. Now you have to deal with it." After saying that, she got out of the car. After her, Brian stepped down from the car. His mood was terrible as he entered the pack house with Sophia. Sophia looked around and found Brian's and Mila's family. They looked normal and were laughing together. Sophia realized that both Brian and Victor had yet to say anything to them. The joy that she saw on their faces made her feel uneasy because she was aware that it would not be for a very long time. On the other hand, she ought not to be concerned. When it came to humiliating her in the past, these people never missed an opportunity. Juliana, Brian's mother, was the one who first noticed them. Her joyful expression changed into a confused one when she saw Sophia. "What are you doing here?" she asked, getting up from the couch. Her reaction caught the others off guard, and they turned their heads to look at them. They also stood up in bewilderment. Sophia felt a hand grasp hers. She cast a glance at her hand. Brian was holding her hand. She tried to free herself, but Brian gripped her tightly and whispered in her ear, "I'm not interested in family drama, but since it is unavoidable, why not enjoy it? Don't forget to pretend like I said." Sophia stopped struggling to break free and relaxed herself. They walked inside the pack house. Juliana furrowed her brow as she observed their joined hands. "Brian, what is going on?" Brian grinned at his mother and then glanced at everyone in the living room. "There is good news for everyone. Alpha Brian was so overwhelmed last night that he decided to get married. Meet my Luna, Mrs. Brian Morrison." Juliana's eyes widened as if the sky had fallen over her. Alpha Harry rushed toward Brian, giving him a stern look. "Have you gone crazy? What are you saying, Brian?" "It's true, Dad. I wanted to tell you all last night, but then I had paperwork to do. So..." Brian shrugged his shoulders as he walked past him and went to the couch. His hand was still gripping Sophia's hand. Sophia could see how everyone looked shocked. Alpha Lucas Laurent and his wife, Bethany Laurent, were too shocked to react. When Brian took a seat on a couch with Sophia, Alpha Lucas let out a growl. "How can you do that, Alpha Brian?" Brian did not look at him, as if he did not want to face that man. Bethany began to cry while shaking her head. "It can't be true. What will happen to my daughter?" Brian made no response to her. Sophia looked at Bethany. She felt sorry for the woman. As a mother, this could be extremely upsetting. "Brian, why did you do that? You are aware that you are forbidden from marrying someone else. How could you marry this woman?" Alpha Harry roared in anger. Sophia was confused. Forbidden from marrying someone else, she thought. Brian looked at his father and muttered, "Think before you talk. She is now this pack's Luna." Alpha Harry was taken aback. Juliana took a step back after hearing her son. She glared at Sophia and said, "You did something to my son. I knew it. You are not going to leave my son. First Bruce, then him. You did not even let go of his enemy, and now, after seducing him, you forced him to marry you." Sophia could not just listen to Julian's words. She looked at her furiously. She snatched her hand away from Brian's grip and said to his mother, "I did not force your son to marry me. He was the one who wanted it. And don't talk about seduction. I didn't seduce him. A year ago, you offered me that check in exchange for leaving his life. I didn't leave because you know the reason. But now everything has changed. I am no longer that foolish girl who will put up with your tantrums." Brian frowned when he heard Sophia. He moved his gaze to his mother and asked, "You offered her a check?" Juliana looked away from him and mumbled, "I knew her real intention. That's why I did that. But she didn't accept it. She wanted to be with you because you are the head alpha." Brian sneered and grumbled. "She didn't accept the check, but she chose to grab a big hand, which would have made her another Pax Luna." Sophia clenched her jaw as she looked at Brian. He openly mocked her. She believed he had brought her here to humiliate her. Alpha Lucas tried to calm himself and said, "I can't accept this marriage. You are bound to marry my daughter. You are a man of words. You gave your words and made a vow that you would marry Mila in the future. Then how did you break your own vow?" Brian finally looked at Alpha Lucas. He appeared to be calm while speaking with him. I made every effort to maintain everything, but your son left me with no choice. The woman beside me is my mate. Did you really think I could let her marry your son? But what about Mila? What about the agreement? The contract for years? You were aware of the consequences, but still, you did something like this. Sophia was puzzled by the conversation going on around her. She had no idea what contract they were talking about. Wasn't it Brian's wish to marry Mila so that he could get half of her pack? Her thoughts were interrupted when Brian spoke up. I am aware of everything. I will talk to your daughter, and she will understand the situation, about the consequences. He took a brief pause before continuing in a cold voice. I will see what the Moon Valley Pack can do to me and my pack. Alpha Brian. Alpha Lucas raised his voice. His eyes were filled with anger, and he had an infuriated look. Bethany almost fell, but Juliana rushed to her to keep her from falling. She was a mother, and she could not watch her daughter's soon-to-be husband marry another woman. It's good that Mila is not here. Otherwise, she would have. Brian frowned at her and cut off her by saying, You all take her lightly. All these years you have been preparing her for my Luna. She should have a strong heart to withstand any shocks. Brian's parents were taken aback by his carefree demeanor. They glanced at each other as fear rushed inside their hearts. Alpha Harry saw how Alpha Lucas was losing himself. He cleared his throat and said, Why not discuss it with a clear mind? Getting angry will not help us. Alpha Lucas looked at Alpha Harry with disappointment. Would you be able to say the same thing if Mila were your daughter, Harry? Alpha Harry lowered his head as he had no answer to the question. Because of his son, he did not have the courage anymore to face Lucas. Juliana got mad at Sophia. She glared at her and said, I will never accept this woman as my son's wife. Accepting her as our Luna is an impossible thing. Sophia was calm all the time as she tried to understand the situation. However, when Juliana intervened, Sophia became enraged. No one is forcing you. Just tell your son to leave my mom and let me go. Brian turned to her with anger. He grabbed her hand again and tightened the grip, which caused her to hiss. She saw him glaring at her. Your mom? Alpha Lucas asked. Brian shut his eyes and got up from the couch. He pulled Sophia up and said to Lucas, She had a misconception. Her mother is my Gamma's mother. She is sick, and she thinks I am blackmailing her. Now you all got your answer? Alpha Lucas stared at him with a different look. Brian gave him a stern look. Protecting my Gamma's mother in his absence is my duty. If someone dares to do anything, you all know what I can do. Sophia stared at Brian. Why did she feel that he was warning Alpha Lucas, as if that man would hurt her mother? Brian then turned and dragged Sophia upstairs. She glanced at the others, who looked stunned by Brian's words. Brian took her to his bedroom and pushed her inside. Don't come out before I tell you. You have done enough stupidity for today. Sophia saw the door shut from outside. She did not argue since she did not want to be a part of the discussion going on downstairs. She turned around and looked at the master bedroom. She recalled the first day she had come to this room. She glanced at the nightstand and saw no photo frame there. She remembered how she accidentally broke the glass in Brian and Bruce's photo frame. Her life was different at that time. She was a happy girl who dreamed about having a mate. She used to believe that her boyfriend would be her mate and would give her a happy life. Sophia slowly sat on the bed. She was emotionally broken. She had no idea how she would live in the future. How many phrases would she have to face in her life where her fate would play with her? She remained in the room the entire day, except for Miss Rosa, who was the chief maid of this pack house. No one came to the room. Miss Rosa was new to the position, and she got the job after Amanda. She was a few years older than Sophia and treated her very well. She gave her an old book and said, It's the book that every Luna should read. Miss Mila used to read this book a lot, so I thought to bring it for you. It includes all of the rules and traditions that the Luna of the Nightshade pack must follow. You can learn almost everything from it. Though Sophia did not have any interest, she tried to read the book to kill her boredom. Indeed, she learned many things. She realized she had been imperfect all along, despite nearly becoming the Luna of the Moon Valley pack. She knew nothing about royal life or its rules. She had no idea how much time had passed while she buried herself in the book. It was late evening when she heard the sounds of cars from outside. She walked to the window and saw a large number of cars parked outside the pack house. She did not know who had arrived until her eyes fell on a familiar car. "That's Victor's car!" She turned around and dashed out of the bedroom. She looked around and saw that there was no one on the floor. She descended the staircase. A few maids were downstairs, and when they noticed her, she asked them, "Where have all the guests gone?" The maids did not say anything. Sophia glared at them. "Just tell me. Alpha told us not to tell you anything about it." Sophia turned away from them and started searching for the room or hall where all the guests were. While they were shouting, the maids hurried behind her. "Please, Luna, go back to Alpha's room. Alpha doesn't want you to be there." She ignored them and continued her search for the hall until she came across a large wood door. There were 2 guards outside the door. They immediately stopped her from touching the door. "You are not permitted to attend the meeting," one of the guards explained. "You can't stop me. Let me go inside." Sophia tried to get closer to the door, but the guards stood like walls before it. Since she was now their Luna, they did not even dare touch her. They only politely requested that she go back. She took a deep breath and pushed them in anger. When they moved away from the door due to her unexpected action, she pushed it open and entered. Everyone in the meeting hall turned their heads to look at her. She huffed as she looked at the large wooden table and the people sitting around it. Her gaze first fell on an angry Brian, then on Victor, who appeared stunned. Victor immediately stood up and roared, "Did you all see? This man lied about her not being here. He wants to cage her. She was here all the time." Beta Robert rushed to Sophia and grabbed her hand. "Why are you here? Go back to Brian's room," he said in a low tone. Sophia shook her head. "No, I won't go. I want to listen to what is happening here." Brian's eyes were fixed on Sophia, indicating that she should shut her mouth and leave. Victor looked at her and said with an assuring tone, "Sophia, every key member of the Moon Valley Pack is here to rescue you. Just tell everyone that Alpha Brian forced you to marry him. I promise no one will be able to keep you here any longer." Sophia saw the people, who were some of the pillars of Victor's pack, waiting for her answer. She looked at Brian and noticed him shaking his head. She turned away from him, believing it was her last chance to free herself and her mother from him. She nodded her head and answered, "Yes, he forced me to marry him. My mother's life is in danger and under his control. If he had not forced me, I would never have married him." The whole meeting hall turned silent. Robert's grip on Sophia's hand slowly loosened. Brian shut his eyes as if he were experiencing humiliation he had never imagined. His teeth gritted and his fist tightened in fury. He was trying to keep his rage from killing every single person in the meeting hall. So it is evident, Alpha Brian tried to snatch someone else's Luna, and it's not the first time. He will have to let go of her now. Sophia frowned when she heard Victor. Not the first time? She had no idea what Victor was talking about. Victor grinned at Sophia and replied, "You are so innocent, Sophia. You don't know anything about this man. Do you know how many crimes he has committed in the past? How many cases were on his head? It's just my disloyal father who betrayed me and saved this man. But lastly, he betrayed my father too by marrying you." Sophia moved her gaze to Alpha Lucas, who was sitting next to Alpha Harry. Alpha Lucas lowered his head as if he agreed with Victor. Meanwhile, Alpha Harry looked angry at his own son. All of the men around the table were staring at Brian, who had closed his eyes. "Would you like to know?" Victor asked Sophia. Brian's eyes flung open as he glared at Victor. Victor chuckled at him. "You are forbidden to say anything, but I am not. You are a lucky man who would have gotten a reward instead of punishment for your crime. Do you really think I will let it slide?" Sophia looked at Victor in confusion. What are you saying?" Victor nodded his head and said, "Alpha Brian, who used to be known as a rebel, fancied my mate, but his other intention was to weaken my wolf. He first raped my mate, and when she complained about it to my grandfather, he killed her in front of the entire Laurent family." Sophia's eyes widened in shock. She took a step back, tears welling in her eyes. "Raped her? Then Sophia found it hard to believe. She tried not to lose consciousness, even though her head was spinning. Brian turned his head to look at her as if he were observing her reaction. His eyes turned red as he looked away from her. Beta Robert, Delta Edger, and Theta Noble rushed to him and stood behind him. They were aware of their alpha's anger. So it's clear. She will no longer be bound by this marriage. There had been no crown ceremony yet, so this would have no effect on the pack's reputation. He can easily divorce her on paper, Victor said, sitting down on his chair with a sly grin. Brian stared at him for a while. Everyone assumed that Alpha Brian had conceded defeat. But after a while, Brian looked at his Theta. Noble handed over a folder to him quickly. Brian tossed it onto the table, which slid smoothly and stopped close to Victor, who was occupying the other head chair. Keep dreaming of rescuing her, Victor Laurent. Victor grabbed the folder and opened it to read what was inside. He clenched his jaw. It was the contract he had signed a few days ago. It stated that if she took any steps to cancel the wedding, he would be forced to let her go. To be more precise, he would also be powerless to do anything to her. But she said you forced her, Victor said to Brian. Brian raised a brow as his eyes turned black. So, there will be no wedding. That is the main point here. He slowly turned his head and looked at Sophia, then muttered, "She thinks this is a game in which everything will go her way. I will burst the bubble very soon." Victor roared in anger. "You did that intentionally. You set your mind to marry her from that time on, right? You made me sign this contract very cleverly." As if Brian were trying to calm himself down, he scoffed at him, asking, "If a man can't save his own mate from me, how will he save mine?" Everyone around the table was shocked. They immediately looked at Sophia, who was in a daze. "She is Alpha Brian's mate." The men studied her closely, as if she were someone they had never expected to see in their lives. Rubbish! Victor's roar brought them back to reality, and they cleared their throats. "Alpha Brian, you have ignored the contract for years. You were not punished for killing our Alpha's mate before, because you agreed to marry our pack's other heiress and allow her to rule your own pack alongside you." Brian's gaze shifted to the man who had just spoken out. The man lowered his head instantly, avoiding Brian's chilly gaze. Brian did not give a damn about all the old and senior pack members who were sitting in front of him. He pulled out a cigarette and placed it between his lips. Delta Edger lit the cigarette quickly. Edger noticed Alpha Harry glaring at him, but he ignored him because he was not his Alpha, but his son was. Seeking to calm himself, Brian inhaled a cloud of smoke. His gaze swept across every set of eyes seated around the table as he exhaled the smoke from his mouth. After calming himself, Brian began to speak. "You said I killed your Alpha's mate. However, your Alpha was not the head Alpha, and the woman in question was not your Luna at that particular time. Your former old Alpha had proposed a punishment for the law of killing their Luna. But he forgot that his grandson was not the head Alpha, but rather an heir who had not even been declared Alpha to inherit the throne. His father, Alpha Lucas, was the head Alpha at the time. He did not announce that his son was about to become the next Alpha either. Upon hearing him, everyone was shocked. He was logically right. Victor was not the head Alpha at that time, so that woman was not their future Luna either. It would have only been possible if Victor had been crowned or declared the new Alpha. Getting up from his chair, Victor gave his father a scowl. "Are you going to remain silent and let this man win every battle? Don't you have any fear of your daughter's life, Alpha Lucas?" His cold voice was icy, and it shook his pack members. Alpha Lucas finally broke the silence and spoke out for the first time. "Alpha Brian, you promised that you would marry my daughter. I didn't expect this betrayal from you." Victor grabbed his father's collar and growled at him. "At this moment, you are expressing your expectations of him?" Except for Brian, everyone got up from their seats. Brian's officials went to Victor to break Lucas free from him. "This is why I wanted shelter from him and never wanted to give you my throne, Victor," Alpha Lucas yelled angrily. Brian smoked carelessly while looking at them. His gaze did not go back to the woman who was watching everything, as if he did not want to see her anymore. Victor turned to Brian and growled at him. "I want your mate. A mate for a mate. You killed mine, I will not let you have yours." The pack members of the Moon Valley Pack could see how their alpha was losing his temper. They were afraid that one of the alphas would die tonight, so they looked at Brian and said, "You have to take your punishment, Alpha Brian. You can't deny that you killed his mate. It's a royal punishment. You have to step down from your posit." "Wait!" Everyone paused when someone spoke up from a distance and stopped them. They looked at the door and noticed who had just entered the hall. It was Abraham Berge, the Gamma of the Nightshade Pack. Sophia turned her head to look at her brother. She did not know if she should feel happy that her brother had returned, because she had no feelings left in her heart to describe on her face. All this time she tried to understand everything, and what she decoded was, Brian raped Victor's mate, and when she complained about it, he killed her. Because of his crimes, the former alpha of that pack attempted to take action against him, but Alpha Lucas was the head alpha, so he had the power to rescue him. He saved him by making him vow to marry his daughter. But there was one thing that Sophia could not understand. Why did Alpha Lucas choose a man to be his son-in-law who had sexually assaulted his son, Victor's mate? In her heart, Sophia was shaken. Sophia could not believe that Brian could have done such a thing. Her heart turned stone when she thought that he had committed such a crime. However, for an unknown reason, her heart did not agree to accept it. One by one, a blow came to her heart as she saw Victor's behavior and heard what was on Victor's mind. He even said mate for mate, which meant he would not feel bad to try to hurt her in the future. All he wanted was revenge. Brian's behavior also did not go unnoticed by her, as she saw how carelessly he was smoking. He did not even deny any of his crimes. Now, when she saw her brother, she was upset that he would have to face this bitter truth. "Gamma Abraham," Beta Robert said. Abraham walked inside but paused when his eyes fell on Sophia. He frowned at her and asked, "Why are you here, Sophie?" "Bro, brother." "Come here, Abraham. Don't waste your time with your disloyal Luna. I have other things to do. I don't want to waste any more time here." Abraham's eyes widened when he heard Brian. "A Luna?" he questioned. Delta Edger cleared his throat, indicating that Brian was already mad, so he should not waste his time. Gamma Abraham looked away from Sophia and walked toward the table. He was holding something resembling a rolling poster. He bowed to Brian as he stood beside him. "Alpha, I did what you ordered me to do." Brian clenched his jaw and muttered, "And I did what I promised you before you even finished your task." Abraham lowered his head. Victor looked at Abraham with a perplexed expression. "What is in your hand? This man forced your sister to marry him by blackmailing her about your mother." Abraham parted his lips in shock. "My mother? What happened to her?" He turned his head to glance at Sophia. She stared at him with a pair of empty eyes. "She is totally fine. She is under Alpha's protection," Robert assured Abraham. Sophia refrained from saying anything. She felt that this was no longer an appropriate situation for her to speak in. But she was broken inside. Her shattered heart could not withstand any further blows. "What is that, Abraham?" Alpha Harry inquired as he looked at the brown poster-like paper. Abraham unrolled the paper and laid it on the table. As soon as Alpha Lucas and every other member of the Moon Valley Pack saw it, their eyes widened as they were taken aback. Alpha Lucas looked at Brian. In response, Brian smirked at him. Victor spoke with a perplexed expression. "It is the map of the Moon Valley Pack." Brian sneered at him. "You have been the Moon Valley Pack's alpha for the past 2 years. But, aside from roaming around with women, what did you do? You don't even know it's not just a map, but the royal deed of your pack. Perhaps your beloved grandfather forgot to show you." "Wait, how could he show it to you? It was already too late for him to survive before you became the head alpha." After mocking him, Brian let out a laugh. Everything gulped as they fixed their gazes on the map. Victor glared at him. Victor's expression was fierce as he attempted to sprint towards Brian to launch an attack. But his officials and Brian's officials grabbed him from moving. Sophia could understand. What would they do with the map or the royal deed? Abraham looked at Victor and said, "Every sub-alpha who is in charge of different parts of the Moon Valley Pack signed the map in their state. In their opinions, they do not want to clash with Alpha Brian, and want to end the rivalry here by letting go of the crime, since you never marked that woman as your mate in the first place. Victor's eyes widened as he snatched the map and gripped it in his hands. How dare they betray their lord? Brian got up from his chair and smashed the cigarette butt on the wooden table. An alpha who forced his pack members to call him their lord while doing nothing for them but benefiting from his position as head alpha is not their real lord. It looks like they are just waiting for a chance to throw you out of your position, Alpha Victor. Isn't it why your grandfather banished me from your pack? In fear that his pack would be on my side. Victor shook his head. No way. I can't accept it. You still require the main sign, which is the sign of the current alpha. Brian seemed to be annoyed. He looked at Alpha Lucas, whose eyes were on the map. Is this really your son? People fear him simply because he holds the title of head alpha. He thinks I am a fool with no plan other than to do whatever comes to mind, just like him. Alpha Lucas slowly looked at Brian. His eyes were upset, and then he lowered his head in defeat. Victor shook his head again, as if he refused to accept his defeat. I don't believe you. I demand punishment and the removal of your position. Brian ignored him and looked at his other officials, who were standing next to Victor. Why are you all there? Are you his officials? They hurriedly made their way to Brian. They only went to Victor to protect Alpha Lucas from him. Brian told Delta Edger, go and bring him here. Everyone was confused about who he was talking about. Delta Edger left the hall and returned within a minute. A man wearing a black coat entered the hall. Sophia blinked her eyes as she saw the familiar face. She tried to recognize the man until her eyes widened. It was the same man she had seen at the airport with Victor. He was the pregnant woman's husband with whom she was sitting at the airport. At that time, Victor's furious voice rang throughout the hall. He is my lawyer. What is he doing with you? Victor hurried towards his lawyer as he spoke. You bastard! How did you betray me? But before he could reach him, Brian blocked his way and grabbed his neck. Brian growled at Victor, and it was so loud that it almost pierced other people's ears. Victor did not pretend to be calm anymore, as he also grabbed Brian's neck in anger. You are so afraid of your mate that you broke every rule and married her, Victor said to Brian. Sophia stared at them. She had nothing to say. She did not want to stop any of them either. She had seen Victor's true colors today. She assumed he had come here to free her from Brian, but he seemed to have his own agenda from the start. She had no value in anyone's eyes. She had become just a play toy for others. The rape thing hit her mind so hard that she felt numb in her heart and mind. It felt like Brian committed a bigger crime than killing the woman. The officials pulled the two alphas away. Brian glared at Victor and roared, Dare to touch my men, and I will chop you in front of your fellow pack members right now. Did you forget your past? Did you forget how I killed your mate in front of your eyes? Your so-called grandpa could not even save her. Do you think I am afraid of anyone? If it had not been for my pack members, I would have killed you the day you escaped from your destination, the mental asylum. A psychopath like you belongs there, not here. The lawyer took out some documents and handed them to Victor. Victor looked at him with fiercer eyes. You have the audacity to approach me. Don't you have any fear of death? He raised his head and looked into Victor's eyes. Alpha Brian is my alpha. How can I feel afraid of any other alpha in the world? I am bound to obey him, not anyone else. You. Victor tried to attack him, but his officials kept him from doing so. Brian, what's that on the paper? Alpha Harry asked his son. Brian did not reply as he waited for Victor to see it by himself. When Victor looked at the document, he exclaimed, Impossible. How can I sign these papers? I cannot remember signing them. How could I possibly agree with it? Alpha Lucas went to Victor and snatched the document from his son. His brows lifted when he read the papers. Mila Laurent is free to marry anyone she wants. She has no obligation to wed Alpha Brian, but Alpha Brian is bound to take responsibility for her safety. He will take care of her forever. He will not take over half of the Moon Valley pack either. Alpha Lucas's voice echoed throughout the hall. He could see the head alpha's sign there. Victor grabbed the papers and tore them apart. Now what? There's no proof. You deceived me into signing the document. You sent your gamma into my pack without my permission. My own lawyer turned out to be a traitor. Brian sneered at him. Ask yourself first, are you really a head alpha? Did you think that was the main deed? It was just a copy. I will send you thousands of copies like this. Tore them one by one while taking your time. Theta Noble grabbed some papers and handed them to Brian. Brian signaled Noble to give it to Alpha Lucas instead of him. This is the contract that you made years ago when you were the head of Alpha. You still have the power of a half-pack, and the map needs your sign too. It's your choice now to tear it or let me wait for your action. Victor shook his head at his father. But Alpha Lucas did not look at him. He tore the contract he had signed 5 years ago and proceeded to sign the map that was resting on the table. You can't do that! Victor yelled in anger. But Alpha Lucas did not listen to him. It was like he was more loyal to Brian than his own son. After signing, Alpha Lucas gave the map to Beta Robert and said, Alpha Brian let go of the half-pack. What is there to ask more about? He sacrificed the half-throne. There was silence throughout the hall once again, and Brian turned to look at everyone. Brian sighed as if he had finally gotten his hands on something he had wanted for years. The meeting is over, he said before turning around. He could hear angry growls from Victor, which he did not care about. While making his way to the door, there was another woman standing near it who was looking at the table with a blank face. He did not even give her a glance before leaving the meeting hall. Sophia. Abraham walked up to her and grabbed her hand. He dragged her out of the hall, far away. He could see her lost eyes. I have a lot of things to tell you, but right now I have to go and see Mom first. What happened to her? Sophia blinked her eyes as if she had just come back to her senses. She had surgery. I need to go, Abraham said with concern. Brother, take me with you, she said, begging him with her eyes. Sophie, you should not go outside the pack house tonight. You can see Mom tomorrow. Sophia saw her brother leaving. She let out a deep breath and went upstairs. She saw Rosa coming out of the room. She bowed to Sophia and said, This is your and Alpha's first night. We prepared everything for you both. Sophia was confused. When Rosa left, Sophia opened the door and was stunned. She closed the door and looked around. The bedroom had been decorated with flowers. She walked inside and noticed the rose petals on the bedsheet, which looked so welcoming to the new bride and groom. Sophia shook her head. I can't stay here. She turned to the door to leave the room. But as soon as she opened the door, she saw Brian standing outside the door. She took a step back and mumbled, I can't stay. Before she could finish, Brian entered the room and shut the door behind him. When she noticed him locking the door, she stuttered. What are you doing? Brian's angry eyes met hers. He grasped her hand and pressed her against the door. You dared to humiliate me again. I swear, no one will be able to save you from me tonight. Leave me, Sophia said, trying to push his chest, but she could not move him at all. His grip tightened on her hand, which caused her to feel pain. You thought you would get away from me after taking his support in front of others, didn't you? His harsh tone made her look into his eyes. She realized everything was over. There was no one who could save her from him. Did you rape? When he heard her, he let go of her hand and cut her off by grabbing her jaw. I observed your perception of me. You never failed to let me down and express how hateful you are for me. Grabbing his wrist, she tried to push his hand away from her jaw. Leave me. I don't want to be with you. Brian's eyes darkened as if he had lost his temper entirely. You think I am a rapist. If that's the case, why would I act like a saint in front of you? Then, without letting go of her jaw, he smashed his lips against hers. His action caused her eyebrows to rise. She tried to push him again. In anger, he let go of her jaw and grabbed her hands. He pinned them over her head and deepened the kiss. Sophia's eyes widened when he pushed his tongue inside her mouth and kissed her roughly. She tried to move her body, only to feel him pressing his body against hers. When she felt breathless, he still did not let her go. She attempted to kick between his legs, but as if he knew all of her moves, he raised his legs between her thighs and pressed them against her core over the cloth. She got so mad that he bit his lip. He broke the kiss and touched his lip. When he saw blood, it enraged him more. He growled at her, causing her to tremble from within. He looked fiercer. She had never seen him this angry at her, not even when he made her sign the marriage contract, not even when Victor kissed her. You let that man kiss you and didn't hesitate for once. Now, when your husband is kissing you, you are biting his lips. He asked her, glaring at her. Stay away from me. I don't want to be a man like you. He nodded his head. From my side, I never gave you a reason to hate me. I always tried to protect a foolish woman like you. But tonight, I will give you a reason to hate me. After saying that, he released her hands and lifted her into his arms. She kicked her legs into the air. What are you doing? Leave me. He walked to the bed and threw her onto it. Brian appeared to have lost his mind completely. He approached her as if he were a beast that had lost all control over himself. Fear caused her to sit up and move backward when he placed his knee on the bed. Taking hold of his ankle, he drew her closer to him. He got on top of her and prevented her from moving, even though she tried to. He took off his black suit jacket while looking at her. I am the bad guy in your eyes, then why not make your perception permanent in your mind? He muttered in anger. She shook her head when he leaned down with a furious face. When he was about to kiss her again, she turned her face away from him. His lips landed on her cheek. Seeing her resistance to his kiss, he leaned on her neck hungrily. He sucked her neck and licked her skin, leaving his mark. When he moved down to her chest, she pushed his head. You are a devil, Brian. You are proving that you actually did something to that woman. Brian paused for a moment. Sophia thought her words had stopped him. But she realized she was so wrong when he growled at her after meeting her gaze. Despite my warning, you let that man touch you. Now you are having problems with my touch. He grabbed her dress by the shoulders and tore the upper side, leaving her upper body in her bra. She screamed in shock. Brian, leave me. He buried his face in her breasts, sucking them over her bra. He groaned when his wolf wanted to take over. I hate you. Her words fueled his anger more and more. He ripped her whole dress and threw it on the floor. She was in her underwear, crying like a mess. There was no way he could control himself now. Even his wolf wanted to take his mate right now. He tilted to kiss her again. He kissed her roughly while locking her hands with his. However, when her tears touched his cheeks, he paused. He let go of her hand and tightened his fists around the bedsheet. His whole body was pressed against her, and he could feel himself getting harder. But he clenched his jaw and pulled away from the kiss. He looked at her face. Her eyes were closed, and tears streamed down from them. He remained motionless for a long time, staring at her. She began to sob. His gaze moved to her tears. When she felt him unmoved, her teary eyes opened. He moved away from her body and got out of bed. He threw the blanket over her without looking at her almost naked body. Stop crying. I'm leaving, he said, tightening his fists as if he were controlling himself. He picked up his suit jacket, which was lying on the floor, and walked to the door. He opened the door, turned his head to the side, and muttered, I wish I did not care about you and had never loved you so much that I lost self-esteem in my own eyes. I used to believe that loving someone would only make them weak. Today, you proved me right. Loving you turns into the worst feeling I'm experiencing right now, leaving me completely powerless. Sophia heard the sound of closing the door. She bit her lower lip as tears streamed out of her eyes. She turned her body to the right side and fixed her eyes on the blank wall. She was at a loss for words and emotions. She sobbed while thinking about what had just happened. She wanted to hate Brian more. Her heart was pounding inside. She had witnessed a side of Brian that she had never seen before. She felt weak in front of him, because her wolf never wanted to go against her mate. Her wolf kept telling her something that she did not want to listen to. If he wanted, he could force us, but he still loves us. Sophia shut her eyes. She wiped her tears and cried silently. She did not sleep last night, and today was a very exhausting day. She could not just process anything in her mind anymore. She kept thinking about everything she heard in the meeting hall. She had no idea when her eyes were closed, and she fell asleep. Sophia was wandering around the dark forest when her eyes caught a sight of a black giant wolf. His red eyes were fierce, which could kill anyone in one glance. But what grabbed her attention was the wound in his chest. Blood was oozing out of the wound. Under the moonlight, she could see his wet black fur, soaked in blood. When he began to walk, blood drops fell to the ground. Suddenly, she felt pain in her own chest. She realized that she was not in her wolf form. Grasping her dress, she clutched her chest. It was a pain that she had never felt before. It was like someone slowly piercing something in her chest. But there was no blood coming out of her chest. She glanced at the giant wolf again. He came to a halt where the moonlight shone directly down on him. He was standing under the moon, looking like a moonchild. A giant body with black and shiny fur, almost glimmering under the moonlight. Sophia had never seen such a big and attractive wolf before. He looked strong, giving her the impression that he was the most powerful of all the wolves she had ever encountered. The wolf raised his head to the moon and looked up at it, then howled. Sophia's eyes widened when she began to feel more pain than before. It was not because of the wolf's painful howl. The howl trembled her knees, and the pain in her chest reached her heart. She fell to her knees in pain. The howl grew more painful, as did the pain in her chest. She did not understand why the wolf was howling like that. He could not recognize him. Did she hurt him? It was as if the moon goddess was angry at her for giving pain to her beloved moon child, so she made her feel the same pain in her chest. Sophia shook her head, as she could not take it anymore. She could not believe that the wolf felt this pain. It was almost impossible for her to take it. Stop it. She let out a crying scream, but the wolf did not stop howling. Please stop. She wept and almost begged from afar. She wanted to stand up and rush to the wolf, hugging him and telling him to stop. But she was no longer in a condition to ease his pain. Grasping her dress with her fists, she uttered, "Stop it." When she felt the howling stop, she calmed down and looked at the wolf. As if the wolf had heard her pleading, he ceased his agonizing howls. Her heart raced when she saw him turning in her direction. But as soon as his red eyes met hers, she found them familiar. The wolf began to make his way toward her. She did not want to face those painful eyes, so she shut her eyes tightly. No. She was scared that she would cause him more pain and that he would hunt her again. So she screamed, "Don't come close to me." After the screaming, she felt everything around her fall silent. She thought the wolf had left her alone. But when she opened her eyes, she found herself lying in bed. Her whole body was sweating. It took her a few seconds to realize that she was having a nightmare. She slowly sat up, and her blanket fell from her upper body. She was careless about it, as her mind was still in the dream, thinking about the black wolf. However, when her eyes moved in the room, she let out a loud gasp. Her eyes widened when she saw Brian sitting on the couch in front of the bed. He was holding a glass of wine, with the bottle resting on the coffee table next to the couch. "You!" she mumbled in a low voice. She remembered him leaving the room just before she fell asleep. She turned her gaze outside the window and realized that it was midnight. The moon was shining brightly. It was then that the dream hit her mind, and tears began to well up in her eyes. She recognized the red eyes. She realized the wound in his chest was caused by her, but the painful howls did not seem to come from a physical pain, but from a pain in the heart. She slowly moved her eyes toward him again. She kept her gaze fixed on him while he was drinking. She thought about the incident before she fell asleep. He came close to having sex with her, but he refrained from doing so. What made him stop? If he wanted, he could do anything to her. There was no one to stop her. After all, she had no power over him now. Sophia recalled the times when he gave her time before they had sex for the first time. Just like tonight, he let her go that night and told her to go to sleep. The difference was that she gave in at the time, so he did not stop himself, whereas she refused tonight, so he could not force her. She remembered every word that he said to her before leaving. Everything came to her mind: the forbidden contract of marrying anyone else, the behavior of Victor, the contract of saving her if she did not marry Victor, and her brother's arrival with Moon Valley Pack's pillars' signatures. She gripped her forehead, feeling a sharp pain in her head. She was confused as hell. Did he not try to hurt her mother and make her sick? Did he ask her to be his mistress because he had no other choice? Did he ask her to be his mistress, not out of desire, but because he actually loved her and had no other way to be with her? Was there something else behind his killing Victor's mate, and he did not rape her? Was everything she was thinking possible? She closed her eyes, feeling pain in her head and heart. However, all the pain eased when she heard Brian's voice. "Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. You have humiliated me enough. By considering me a rapist, you made me realize where I stood in your eyes. You can sleep peacefully. You don't need to be scared anymore." Sophia bit her bottom lip as she stared at him. She would not be able to handle it if all that she was thinking was true. She lowered her gaze and wrapped her upper body around the blanket. Brian spent the entire night drinking and did not even glance at her for once. Meanwhile, leaning back against the headboard, she stared at him the whole night, lost in her thoughts. Sophia rubbed her eyes as she found herself leaning against the headboard. The sunlight was falling on her face through the window. She cleared her vision and saw that Brian was not on the couch. There were bottles of wine, and a glass was still on the coffee table near the couch. However, they were empty, indicating that he had consumed the alcohol. Sophia drew her legs closer to her chest and rested her head on her knees, gazing out the window. She tried to face the sun as the sunshine hit her eyes directly. It looked like she had fallen asleep while staring at Brian. He did not speak to her the entire night. There was a strange silence between them. She did not know why she was not feeling well. Her wolf was also upset. She closed her eyes to take a deep breath. When she opened them, they turned ocean blue. Her beautiful face glowed under the sunlight, and her ocean blue-colored eyes looked lighter. "I can't stay like this. I need to know the truth. There are so many things I am not aware of. How long will I be in the dark?" She thought and exhaled deeply. She went to the bathroom to take a shower. When she came out and looked for clothes, she was surprised to see that half of the closet was full of dresses for her. She grabbed a high-necked dress and quickly put it on. She wanted to go visit her mother first. She was worried for her health. When she walked out of the room, she noticed maids on the floor. They paused what they were doing after seeing her, then hurriedly bowed to her. "Good morning, Luna," they greeted her. She felt awkward whenever she heard someone calling her Luna. It was because she was not used to it. But she nodded at them with a light smile. "Good morning." She felt they were quite welcoming compared to the maids of Brian's own house. She walked forward while thinking about last night's dream. She had no idea what that was. How could just one dream calm her so much? She felt she was different today. Was it because Brian tried to force her last night? Her heart reminded her that Brian did not have sex with her forcefully, even though he could have done that, and there was no one to stop him. Sophia's heart sank when she remembered his words. She shook her head to shove everything from her head. She just wanted to see her mother right now. She would think about everything else later. Right now, only her mother was important to her. As she descended the stairs, she glanced at the door. The living room was empty, so there was nothing she needed to think about before leaving. But her steps came to a halt when she heard sounds of crying. She frowned and turned her heel in the direction of the sounds. She walked to the left corner and took a few steps until she arrived in a room where she could hear crying. The door was ajar. Sophia could see who was crying. It was Mila. Sophia's eyebrows raised as she noticed Mila's broken appearance. She was crying while hugging her mother. Mila's eyes fell on Sophia, and she stopped crying. Sophia was taken aback when Mila rushed toward her and grabbed her arms. "How could you marry my man? How?" Sophia looked away from her. In other times, she could have taunted Mila, but right now, she felt bad for her. Mila had been preparing to be Brian's Luna based on what she had heard at the meeting yesterday. She sighed, grabbed Mila's hands, and pushed them away lightly. Mila's mother, Bethany, came to Sophia and said, "Please, leave my daughter alone. You have already destroyed her life enough. Now why did you come here?" Mila looked at her mother and said, "Mom, I am feeling regret for trying to stop her wedding with Victor. I was a fool who sympathized with her and believed that no woman deserved a man like him. I should never have spoken up for her." Sophia parted her lips in surprise. She remembered how Mila tried to stop his brother from marrying her when they came here for dinner. Sophia could not help but ask, I never asked you before. Why are you so scared of Victor? Mila glared at her. You are no one to know anything. You snatched Brian from me. Sophia frowned at her. Just because I am behaving warmly, you can't talk to me like this. You were the one who had trapped him in a contract that he desperately wanted to break. He never wanted you in the first place. Mila's eyes widened as more tears rolled down her cheeks. Sophia shut her eyes as she realized she should not have said those harsh words to her. Listen, Mila, you are not my enemy, but Brian is my mate. You can't blame me for it. Sophia was shocked by her own words. Until yesterday, she wanted to leave him. But after learning what she learned in the meeting hall and thinking deeply about it, she wanted to learn the truth. I have no problem if he is protecting you or something, but I really want to know why your family behaves so strangely around Victor. Why do you look so scared? You are the daughter of an alpha. You can get any alpha as a life partner. Why does your father only want Brian to protect you? Sophia's question caused Mila to smile at her bitterly. Do you really want to know the truth? Bethany shook her head at Mila. My dear, calm down. Let's not talk about it. No, Mom. She should know who she married and who she almost married, Mila said to her mother, pushing her mother's hand away from her shoulder. Mila looked into Sophia's eyes with a broken look and replied, The man you were about to marry was the man from whom I escaped and came here for refuge. Despite being my half-brother, Victor used to sexually assault me. Brian was the man who came into my life like a knight and saved me from him. And no, that's not true, Sophia said, taking a step back in shock. Mila laughed at her with teary eyes. This is why I am not allowed to say this to anyone. No one will believe me. It will only lose my father's reputation, and no one will be able to do anything to that monster either. It's a dark past of my life that only Brian and my family know. Only I know how I spent my days looking at that man's face. Sophia felt something hurt her eyes. She could not just believe what she was hearing from Mila. She had been with Victor before, but she had never felt anything like this. He used to talk about women, but she thought he was just a playboy. What are you saying, Mila? You are aware of your words, right? Sophia said, trying to be calm. Bethany gave Sophia a stern look. Can't you see my daughter's state? You think, in this condition, she will lie to you? For what? You have already married Alpha Brian. He has already broken every contract. Now, there is nothing on our hands that we will lie to you about. Now please leave my daughter alone. Bethany shut the door, leaving Sophia stunned outside the door. She heard Mila's loud voice from inside. Mom, why did you stop me? She wanted to know the truth, right? Does she have the guts to know everything? Sophia did not move from her place, as she was in a state where she did not know what to feel anymore. Victor Laurent used to sexually assault his sister, who is related by blood. Please don't cry, my child. I believe your fate has decided something good for you. Good for me? How? For many years, I tried to make a place in Brian's heart, but that woman captured his heart for years. I wished her brother would never become the gamma of our pack. I wish Brian had never seen her 4 years ago. Mila's voice pulled Sophia back to her senses, and she became more confused. 4 years? What is she talking about? She remembered that she had met Brian 2 years ago. So what exactly was Mila talking about? By the way, Mila was crying. Sophia did not think that she was lying about Victor, but she became perplexed for about 4 years. Sophia wiped her cheeks as soon as she felt them wet. She realized that she was crying for Mila. She never thought that one day she would have to cry for that woman. She almost felt stabbed in her heart by thinking about how Victor used to torture Mila. That woman still addressed him as brother and spoke politely with him. She felt rage inside her heart toward Victor. She had never imagined that Victor would have turned out to be such a man. A profound animosity toward that man washed over her. She recalled how many people had tried to warn her about his intentions. However, she never paid attention to what they said. She realized Brian had tried to warn her about Victor the most. Suddenly, everything crossed her mind. Brian forced Victor to sign a contract at dinner that night. Was it because he was confident that he could somehow save her from Victor? She recalled Victor's words from the meeting hall that Brian had set his mind to marry her at that time. Sophia shut her eyes as she felt angry at herself. Brian's confession came to her mind like a flood. My marriage to Mila is an agreement that I must keep no matter what. My hands are tied, but not yours. I cannot see you getting married to another man. I will never let you do that. Did he mean tied to that contract? Did he mean Mila's safety and the forbidden rules of marrying someone else? When Sophia realized she could solve the puzzle and everything made sense, her eyes grew wide. So that is why Alpha Lucas wants to make Brian his son-in-law, even if he had so many crimes in his head? Because he knows how cheap his son is, Sophia thought. She pulled her hair as tears streamed out of her eyes. No, I can't be so foolish. How could I ignore everyone's words like a deaf? She thought about what Brian had told her a few days ago. He said he had let her go when she refused to be his mistress, but then she started to come his way by herself. Sophia bit her bottom lip as her back pressed against the wall behind her. She remembered how she used to reveal Brian's business secrets to the other alphas. Every one of the alphas used to approach her themselves. It was because Victor had sent them to her. All these times, Victor played with her like a toy, and she foolishly believed him. He knew everything. He was not even forbidden from telling me the truth, but he concealed everything and lied to me about Brian. Victor used to tell her that Brian had used her as a pawn and dumped her. He always told her that Brian had never loved her. Sophia realized that she did not hate Brian until Victor came into their lives. He was the one who fueled her anger and turned it into hatred. But Brian was also at fault. He asked her to be his mistress. However, he asked forgiveness for it too. Sophia closed her eyes in pain in her heart. She came to the realization that she was not as strong as she believed she was. Luna. Sophia jerked at a voice from behind. She turned around and saw Rosa. Rosa bowed to her and said, "Miss Angelina is here to meet you." Sophia immediately wiped her tears and cleared her throat, but she could not speak clearly. Angelina?" Rosa was stunned when she saw her face. "Luna, are you okay?" Sophia nodded her head and replied, "I am okay. Thanks, Rosa. Where is Angelina?" "She is in the living room, waiting for you." After saying that, Rosa bowed again and left. Sophia walked out of the corner with a pale face. When she entered the living room, she saw no one there except Angelina. Strength. Angelina's gaze landed on her. Furious, Angelina ran to her and took a firm hold of her wrist. "How could you hurt my alpha?" Sophia was astounded by Angelina's eyes, which had turned emerald in anger. Sophia was at a loss for words. "My alpha did everything to protect you, but you, woman, you harmed your own mate. How could you?" My mother." Sophia could not speak properly, as if she were losing her mind. Angelina glared at her and said, "Didn't I warn you at the club to use the weapon of your hand before thinking twice? You tried to kill the man who let go of everything and loved you daringly. He did not even think twice before marrying you." Sophia stared at her, feeling speechless. Angelina shook her head with disappointment in her eyes. "Do you really think he is after your mate bond? After all the years of loving you, he was scared of losing you to that psychopath." Sophia was shocked when she heard Angelina. Did Brian marry her not because of his anger against Victor, but because he really loved her? Everything was becoming too heavy to take for her. She was already stunned by Mila's revelation. Now Angelina's words did not give her a good feeling. She realized that Angelina had warned her before. "So you warned me about that?" she muttered, looking at Angelina like a woman who had lost everything. "Angelina?" Juliana's voice came from behind. Juliana noticed Angelina as she entered the living room. Angelina gave her a nod. Her face did not look calm at all. She looked angry. She did not want to calm herself just now, so her emerald eyes stayed green. "It's been a long time," Juliana said, walking toward her. Her eyes moved to Sophia, who turned her head, avoiding eye contact with her. Juliana frowned at her and ignored her. "How are you, Angelina? Have you seen what your alpha has done? Why didn't you make him understand that Mila was the best Luna for him?" Juliana said as she came to stop in front of them. Angelina looked at Juliana silently until she spoke with a harsh tone. "A former Luna should not speak that way. You used to rule this pack so well. When I was a child, my mother always mentioned you as a strong and intelligent woman. But why are you trying to change people's minds now?" Juliana's eyes widened as she heard Angelina's words. What are you saying? Sophia noticed how Angelina let go of her hand and moved toward Juliana. She had no fear that she was talking with her alpha's mother. It appeared that this woman was more powerful than she had anticipated. Your son is a powerful man. People like to call him the moon child. You are aware of it, right? Angelina asked. Juliana stared at Angelina without answering her. She was mad at her for talking to her in that way. Angelina did not stop as she continued. Then how did you think a moon child could live his life without his mate? There is no relationship in this world that can compare to the love he has for his mate. You are also your husband's mate. Would you have accepted it if someone better had shown up and taken Alpha Harry from you? Juliana was taken aback. You are taking this woman's side. She is a greedy person. She was with Victor all these times. I know everything. She didn't do anything wrong. Everything turned out this way because it was fate. Fate played with them, separating them only to bring them closer. It would be better if you fixed that in your mind. I greatly respect you, but as a royal witch, I must stand beside my alpha before his family. After saying that, Angelina grabbed Sophia's hand once again and dragged her outside the pack house. Sophia could not move her eyes from Angelina all the time. Around so many strong women, she felt weak. Angelina stopped in front of her car and turned to her. You made a mistake and hurt Brian. Sophia shook her head and removed the grip from her hand. And what about the whole year he hurt me? What about me? I didn't know anything about it. What about my mental health, which has been ruined by your alpha? He told me that he did not love me when I asked him a year ago. Angelina sighed as her eyes turned black. She looked calmer as she patted Sophia's head. You can be heartbroken and seek vengeance, but you have to understand who you should take revenge on. You are only ruining your life with your hatred. The truth is, you never hated my alpha. I can read your eyes. You are just upset and broken from inside. Sophia's eyes turned teary as she looked away from her. All these times, we could not say anything to you because we were forbidden to say anything. Alpha Brian was not sure if he could marry you, so he never promised you to make you his wife. The reason was that one contract. It could also endanger your life. But he managed everything at the last moment and married you. He managed to save you too. Now what do you want from that man? Sophia lowered her head as she had nothing to say. She was only listening to her. She agreed with whatever she was saying. But she was shocked when Angelina said, He has loved you for a long time, Sophia. So long when you don't even know him. Sophia slowly raised her head to look at her. What? She recalled Mila's words. She felt curious inside to learn about it. Angelina nodded her head. The very first day you visited your brother in the training hall, he was there. I was there too. I saw how he was looking at you. I saw how the man who was cold as ice almost melted by your sweet smile. That one contract stopped him from approaching you. He was afraid that he would hurt you, but when you turned out to be his mate... She paused as if she were upset to continue. Anguish welled up in Sophia's eyes. She could remember going to the training hall to meet her brother for lunch. She used to go there daily to give him lunch that their mother prepared for him. She had met a few pack fighters there, but never met the alpha. She was surprised to know that he was also present there. She remembered not entering the hall, but instead standing outside to meet her brother. Her brother used to come out, and after lunchtime, he went back to training. When he saw his brother approaching you, he stopped himself because he loved you. He believed you had a future with his brother, which he could never give you. But when fate made you his mate, he became selfish in love and wanted to have you. When you refused to be with him, he let you go. He again wanted to let you go before you stabbed him in the chest. The first contract was not like this one. He wanted to keep you safe and help you leave the pack with your mother. But you chose to hurt him, which broke his heart. He had not expected that from you, Sophia. He was deeply hurt by the woman he loved most. He is really upset with you. Sophia bit her bottom lip to control herself. She did not want to listen to anything more. The feeling of guilt almost ate her alive. It felt like she was so blinded by hatred that she never noticed his love. She wiped her eyes as she sobbed. But when she raised her head to look at Angelina, She saw her take a step back. "What?" she asked Angelina. Angelina did not respond, as if she were lost in her eyes. Sophia furrowed her brows. Her gaze fell on the window glass, and she noticed her own eyes had turned ocean blue. I... Angelina shook her head to cut her off and said, "The moon goddess really created a beautiful creature for her moon child."